here, South Africa is not backing down on plans to end Zimbabwean exemption permits. It will mean that about 200,000 Zimbabweans may be forced to return home. The majority are undocumented and do not hold the permit. So let's get some reaction now from the chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum. That's Mr. Vusumuzi Sibanda. Mrs. Sibanda, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. It's a holiday, and here we are having this discussion. I mean, let's talk about it, because the Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, has made it quite clear that they are not withdrawing their decision, of course, when it comes to those Zimbabwean exemption permits. What's your stance on this decision still by Cabinet?
Well, thank you very much, Tuma. Look, when the Minister or the Department of Home Affairs published Directive 11 of 2021, we understood that it meant that it was only replacing, Directive 10, and the issue was never, about them withdrawing the decision by Cabinet. It was only about, 10, which Directive 10 was giving guidelines as to how the migration would take place, as to, how people would then leave, within the 12-month grace period. And in that directive, they specifically stated that any ZEP holder who wanted banking services and wanted to be employed or to be in learning institutions, in order for them to be assisted post the 31st of December 2021, they needed to have a VFS receipt showing that they have applied for another visa, during that period. Otherwise, anyone without that visa would not be held. And that is what they withdrew, but their decision stood.
Yeah, and let's talk about it. I mean, the 250,000 plus Zimbabweans who, of course, would be affected by, obviously, this decision. The last time we had a conversation, you reminded us that, their banks had started being problematic in terms of assisting them with either loans or personal or home loans because they could not provide, obviously, certain documentation. What's the status right now? Because they do have a 12-month period to apply for other permits. But what are you hearing on the ground in terms of what they're actually going through in either applying for these permits or trying to relocate back to Zimbabwe if that's their decision?
Well, look, I think for starters, the 12-month period that has been given as a grace period, on its own, it is very problematic in that the ZEP holders are not going to be with any visa, or permit that is going to be stamped in their passports. And that is an issue of major concern, because people ordinarily are arrested even when they are with ZEP permits or any other visa, taken to a police station, and sometimes, kept in custody for about 7 days while a 212 statement or a verification process being done. So what we are seeing is a situation where during the 12-month period, it's basically about 178,000 that remain now, because 250,000 was the original number. So what it means is that we have got a 12-month period where the ZEP holders are going to be having serious run-ins with police officers at work. Some employers are not going to be employing people or renewing contracts based on the fact that, there is a statement that was announced, because a statement is not law. And, people not employ, people or assist, give services based on statements that are published on the website. But if a person is a foreigner, that person must have a visa or permit stuck in their passport, which shows that they are validly within the country. So what we are looking at right now, apart from just the decision being quite unfair in terms of the rights of the people that have stayed in South Africa for at least a documented over 11 years, because some of these people came in about 2000 when there were serious problems, in Zimbabwe, which means they've been in the country for years.
Yeah, and as you're talking about that, I mean, you reminded me of what also the minister had tried to reiterate, saying this permit was actually a temporary solution. It was not meant to be utilized by Zimbabwean nationals to stay in South Africa permanently. It was only renewed, I think, approximately 3 times in the last decades or so. I think the point there that he was trying to make was that it was never meant to be a permanent, sort of solution, but more of a temporary one.
Well, that's what the minister is saying. But look, I don't know if anything becomes temporary over 10 years. The issue is having renewed it, more than 2 times, including the first time, it will be 3 times. That means that you are giving people a legitimate expectation that they will continue in the country. And having stayed for 10 years, these people have lost all ties. And when you look at the purpose of permanent residence and citizenship, it looks at when people are legitimately in the country for a given period of time, you would then say this person is ordinarily resident, in this particular country, which is normally 12 months. But if people have stayed for for 5 years, even those that are married, those that have got other work permits, they then qualify to apply for permanent residence. Now, the first permit that was issued, it did not even have that disclaimer clause which says they could not apply for permanent residence. And as a result, from the onset, people left, asylum seeker permits with the view and notion that having stayed, if they stay longer, they would qualify to apply for permanent residence. So that is what is a very big issue and what we are looking to possibly challenge, because we believe that the courts will see this quite differently in terms of the rights that they have now accrued or accumulated to the ZEP holder.
So before I let you go, Mrs. Sibanda, you're saying you're still pursuing legal action or legal recourse regarding this matter?
Yes, most definitely. We're looking at pursuing it basically still on two levels. Despite the removal of the directive, we feel that this has left another vacuum and something very problematic in that there are no visas in the permits. But when it comes also to the decision itself, we believe that the courts are going to see differently, because the right to human dignity has been seriously violated, and the rights of children as well that are attending school and were born in South Africa. So definitely, the opinion of the court on this matter is something that we are still looking at pursuing.
All right, we'll leave it there. I appreciate your time this morning. African Diaspora Forum Chairperson, Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, thank you for your time this morning.